Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to GAN, Global Atheist News, our weekly review of how religion impacts humanity. This week's headlines. The UAE says it will enact the largest legal reform in its history. A nurse tells of her desperate bid to save a girl at the Manchester Arena bombing inquiry. Children are haunted by ghosts of war in the Yemen. Iran's new population law restricts access to contraceptives and abortions. Afghanistan's women footballers find refuge in Portugal. The blasphemous painting of George Floyd and a Black Madonna is stolen. A man builds a Taj Mahal replica for his wife in Madhya Pradesh. The charges against Finnish Christians are because of discriminatory hate speech. Jersey approves the principle of legalizing assisted dying. Controversial televangelist and anti-vaxxer Marcus Lamb has died of COVID-19. And homophobic pastor Stephen Anderson is caught on video again. As usual, there's a lot of Islamic news, so it's over to you, Nuria.
Hi, I'm Nuria Khan with Global Atheist News Islamic Affairs Report. In the inquiry into the Manchester Arena Ariana Grande concert bombing, an off-duty nurse has described desperately trying to save the youngest victim of the Manchester bomb while waiting for medical help to arrive. Safi Rosie Roussos, 8, was among 22 people killed in the 2017 bombing. The public inquiry into the atrocity heard Bethany Crook cared for the girl as she was carried away from the blast scene on an advertising board. She told the inquiry she feared Safi was going to die as they waited for an ambulance outside the Manchester Arena. Hundreds of people were also injured when bomber Salman Abdi detonated a homemade explosive at the end of an Ariana Grande concert at the venue on 22nd May that year. Miss Crook said, "I knew I was losing her. She was struggling to make efforts to breathe at that point. I think she was fighting as hard as she could, but we needed to help her. I was watching her slip away and I couldn't do anything." In Yemen, the Houthi rebels, an Islamist political and armed movement that emerged from Sada in North Yemen in the 1990s, are pushing hard to capture the key city of Marib. It's the last stronghold of the internationally recognized government and is at the center of Yemen's oil fields. The fall of Marib would be a major turning point in the war. Saudi Arabia, backed by the US and UK, intervened in Yemen in 2015, after the Houthis ousted the government from the capital Sana'a. Since then, Yemen has been gripped with one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. It's been a dirty war, with all sides accused of killing civilians and other abuses. At least 800,000 people displaced by the war have fled to Marib. More are on their way. BBC Middle East editor Jeremy Bowen has travelled to Marib to report on the situation. See this video here.
We're heading up towards the front line. We're with soldiers from the army, the government of Yemen. The Houthis, the other side, started a push at the beginning of the year around here. It's really intensified since about September, which has resulted in that big influx of displaced people fleeing from the fighting. For the people in this camp, it's not the first time that they've had to move. They've had to move repeatedly as the front lines have moved. There are camps, plenty of camps, which have been closed because of military action. They move because they have to get away from the front line that's coming towards them.
ايوه بس الشغل كده بصرنا كل حاجه فجايع كل ساعه لما سمعوا قذيفه ولا طلقات ولا اي حاجه.
So she was wounded. These are pictures of dead people. What lies beneath all of this is the war. War kills people. War makes people move. War creates the crisis. And the way this war ends is not in the hands of Yemenis, because big regional powers have intervened. On one side, the friends of Iran, on the other side, the friends of Saudi Arabia, the US, and indirectly Israel. The people here are suffering because of the fault lines that run right through the Middle East.
Goya, a 43-year-old woman in Iran, decided that she will not have children, but her right to choose is now being threatened by the state. Authorities have approved new legislation that imposes further restrictions on abortions, bans the free distribution of contraceptives by the public healthcare system, and provides added state benefits to families with more children. The new law is an attempt by authorities to boost flagging population growth in Iran, a country of some 84 million people. In recent years, a growing number of Iranian women have chosen to have fewer or no children, mainly due to economic woes, changing gender norms, the growth of girls' education, and family planning programs. That trend has seen Iran's population growth rate drop from over 4% in the 1980s to 1.29% in 2020, according to the World Bank, a development that has alarmed Iran's clerical establishment. On November 16, 2021, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi signed into law Rejuvenation of the Population and Support of the Family Bill. The bill, when enacted, will prohibit sterilization and the distribution of contraceptives in Iran's public healthcare system. The only outlined exception is when a pregnancy threatens a woman's life. They approved a law that blatantly undermines the rights, dignity, and health of half of the country's population, denying them access to essential reproductive healthcare and information. The law is facing strong pushback from NGOs for its effect on women's reproductive rights. It's not all bad news. The United Arab Emirates UAE leaders said on Saturday that the country would legislate over 40 new laws and amendments by January in what it calls the largest legal reform in its history. Some of the new laws seek to boost protection for women and domestic servants and ease restrictions on various behaviors, including extramarital relationships. The UAE already enacted several major changes to Islamic laws last year, including loosening alcohol restrictions and criminalizing so-called honor killings. Recent amendments also permitted foreigners to avoid Islamic Sharia courts on issues like marriage, divorce, and inheritance. The broadening of personal freedoms reflects the changing profile of a country that has sought to portray itself as a westernized destination for tourists, fortune seekers, and businesses, despite its Islamic legal code that has previously triggered court cases against foreigners and outrage in their home countries. And the mission to rescue the national Afghan girls' football team from the Taliban and bring them to Portugal was successful.
The girls were flown to Portugal, where they'd been given asylum. I went to visit them during one of their training sessions. Female footballers in Afghanistan were advised to burn their kit for their own protection. But for Sada, it meant too much.
I'm proud of that, and I have a special respect for that, because it changed my life, really.
This is Farkunda. She orchestrated the girls' escape from her home in Canada and is now their coach.
These are fantastic girls. They train hard. They dedicate so much just to football. Yeah, if they stayed in Afghanistan, they would not be able to play football. They would not be educated. And if you were an athlete and the community knew you were an athlete, they would come after you.
And so a plan was devised to get them out of Afghanistan.
We had attempted 10 times to rescue them. When you're unsuccessful, people start to lose hope.
Sadaf filmed one of their first attempts. They trekked through mountains to reach Kabul airport, but there'd been a suicide bombing there and they couldn't get through, so they needed another escape plan. Another option was the Uzbekistan border, but by the time they arrived there, it was closed. They had to go into hiding, their mental health deteriorating.
I would hop on Zoom with them, run a yoga session. We would do some reflections on, happy moments.
Eventually, there was a breakthrough, and on September the 19th, the group boarded a flight to Portugal. After they landed, Falkunda went to visit them. She only intended to stay for a few days, but found she couldn't leave them. She plans to stay for a year and help them start new lives here.
As soon as the girls got out, the first thing they said is, we want to be the voice for the girls left behind. And that's something extremely brave. They defied all odds to play.
هدف داشتیم، یک هدف هم داریم و یک هدف هم می‌داشته باشیم که قبل همه ما به یکدیگر هست.
The girls haven't all been able to stay together though. Some have been given homes in different parts of the country. So I travelled north to find out how they're getting on.
Hi, you're happy here?
Yeah, we are happy here. That we know that we can continue our knowledge, our education, our football in here again and again. And we can have a good future in here. That's all I think.
Banin is here with 2 teammates, but they're missing their friends. She hopes they can play together again in the future.
When I play football, I forgot everything in my life, in my study, everything. When I leave Afghanistan, I afraid, and now I'm so happy that I'm relaxed.
It's shocking to think that this really simple thing that they're doing just isn't allowed in Afghanistan anymore.
The girls were able to bring 3 family members with them and are worried for those they've left behind.
This is my mother, who I call her aunt, my auntie. Can I mention that she's right now here?
Not everyone was able to get out though, and the girls know how lucky they are to be here and free to pursue their dreams.
There still will be an Afghan girls national team, but it would be similar to any national program. So girls would be training with their own football clubs, and then we'll have training camps where they would all come together. This is the big.
Thank you, Nuria. After evoking outrage in white conservative Christian circles, a copy of a painting by St. Louis artist Kelly Latimore depicting the body of George Floyd being cradled by a black Madonna has been stolen from the Mary Mirror of Justice Chapel in the Law School of the Catholic University of America, Washington, D.C. Kelly, a devout Catholic, has also received death threats, and the Catholic University has received several threatening and racist letters of protest over the display of the painting. It's not immediately clear what the objections from the Christian white right are to this painting, but it's been condemned as blasphemous. A man in northern India is building a replica of the Taj Mahal as a monument of love to his wife, who passed away nearly 2 years ago. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Hindu nationalist BJP government has been widely accused of polarizing India along religious lines and fostering intolerance. Even the Taj Mahal has been caught in the crosshairs. In 2017, a BJP lawmaker called the monument a blot on Indian culture built by traitors. A 52-year-old businessman has built a scaled-down replica of the iconic Taj Mahal as a home for his wife of 27 years. Anand Prakash Chouksi built his Monument of Love in Burhanpur city in the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. It was a gift for my wife, but also for the town and its people, Mr. Chouksi told the BBC. Mr. Chouksi said he wanted to spread love in such distressing times, and this house for me is a symbol of that love, one which goes beyond our social differences and political noise.
Beginning of something special.
And now, back to you, John.
Thank you, Nuria. After evoking outrage in white conservative Christian circles, a copy of a painting by St. Louis artist Kelly Latimore depicting the body of George Floyd being cradled by a black Madonna has been stolen from the Mary Mirror of Justice Chapel in the Law School of the Catholic University of America, Washington, D.C. Kelly, a devout Catholic, has also received death threats, and the Catholic University has received several threatening and racist letters of protest over the display of the painting. It's not immediately clear what the objections from the Christian white right are to this painting, but it's been condemned as blasphemous. A man in northern India is building a replica of the Taj Mahal as a monument of love to his wife, who passed away nearly 2 years ago. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Hindu nationalist BJP government has been widely accused of polarizing India along religious lines and fostering intolerance. Even the Taj Mahal has been caught in the crosshairs. In 2017, a BJP lawmaker called the monument a blot on Indian culture built by traitors. A 52-year-old businessman has built a scaled-down replica of the iconic Taj Mahal as a home for his wife of 27 years. Anand Prakash Chouksi built his Monument of Love in Burhanpur city in the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. It was a gift for my wife, but also for the town and its people, Mr. Chouksi told the BBC. Mr. Chouksi said he wanted to spread love in such distressing times. And this house, for me, is a symbol of that love, one which goes beyond our social differences and political noise. An international outcry has broken out over the charges against a Christian politician in Finland, which describe her statements on marriage and sexuality as discriminatory hate speech. A state prosecutor in the Prosecutor General's office told Christian Today that the criminal charges against Parvi Rasanen MP, a Christian Democrat, are justified because her stated view that homosexual activity is sinful according to the Bible is discriminatory hate speech and is punishable under Finnish law. Anu Mantala, a lawyer with Finland's National Prosecution Authority, said, "We emphasize that charges against Mrs. Rasanen concern hate speech which is insulting, degrading, and violates the dignity of homosexuals. According to the Finnish Constitution and Criminal Code, this kind of discriminatory hate speech is punishable." She continued, "The Prosecutor General doesn't charge Mrs. Rasanen for her traditional opinion on marriage between homosexuals, nor for quoting the Bible or explaining its texts. Quoting biblical texts in itself is not a crime in Finland. Mrs. Rasanen has freedom of religion like anyone else. She has the freedom to express her religious opinions and views as well as any other opinions. However, this freedom does not justify speech that can arouse intolerance, contempt, and even hatred towards homosexuals or any other minority." In Jersey, politicians have been approving the principle of legalizing assisted dying on the island. A further debate on the issue will be held next year after details of the processes and safeguards have been worked up. If those proposals are backed, then a new draft law could be discussed and voted on in 2023. Assisted dying involves allowing some terminally ill adults to end their lives with medical supervision. After his Daystar network spent hours broadcasting anti-vaccination, televangelist and anti-vaxxer Marcus Lamb died of COVID. NBC News' Maura Barrett has the details. See this video.
They don't even know what is in the shot.
Marcus Lamb, a broadcaster reaching hundreds of millions of people around the world and who vocally opposed the COVID-19 vaccine, died after battling the virus. He often spread misinformation on his network, which was one of the most popular channels with evangelical Christians in the country.
They're giving shots to people that are already compromised with their immune system.
And I wasn't going to cry, but
His wife announcing the news of his passing on Tuesday.
this morning at 4 a.m., the president and founder of Daystar and the love of my life went to be with Jesus.
Yeah.
His son calling it the work of the devil.
You know, there's no doubt in my mind that this is a spiritual attack from the enemy.
Lamb, who was 64, co-founded the Daystar television network. Their shows often capitalizing on conservative opinion.
They are Marxist atheists. They couldn't care less about black lives, if you want to know the truth.
Mixing religion and politics. And throughout the pandemic,
is there a hidden agenda?
They've dedicated hours of programming to COVID misinformation.
Ivermectin is both a preventative for COVID and a cure.
And anti-vaccine rhetoric.
Of the so-called vaccine to help deal with the plague. It's become its own plague.
The network even dedicated a section of its website appearing to invoke fear around vaccines for children. The page reading, "What if the most dangerous thing your child could face in life is the very thing you're told by your doctor is safe?" Our medical expert calling this tactic irresponsible.
It just sets up a dynamic where even if somebody listening to this information processes it and is logical about it, they might walk away feeling guilty about doing something that has incredible evidence and incredible public health support, and in fact is globally what we need to do to get out of the pandemic.
How detrimental do you think messaging like this is?
Well, it's more viral than I think the Omicron variant is. That leads to consequences such as people getting infected, going to the hospital, or even unintentionally spreading the virus.
Lamb joins a string of conservative broadcasters who criticized the COVID vaccines and then died in the last few months after contracting COVID. Two of them, Tennessee Radio's Phil Valentine and Newsmax's Dick Farrell, had a change of heart when they were hospitalized, urging their followers to get the vaccine before they died. But the Lambs appear to be holding firm on their beliefs, broadcasting to millions.
He 100% believed in everything that we've talked about here on Daystar, and we still stand by that, obviously.
All right, Maura joins us now from Chicago. So, Maura, I know you spoke with Dr. Patel a lot about this. Daystar has such a wide reach. What type of impact does that misinformation have on such a big audience?
Well, Dr. Patel tells me that that lack of accountability that you heard there at the end is actually more irresponsible than the misinformation itself. She thinks that ideological concerns or political stances really shouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things when it comes to public health. But when you see statements like this spread so widely on Daystar, it can have this huge ripple effect, right? And she says that that can make the genie really hard to get back in the bottle, especially after someone dies. Now, as for the Lamb family, their spokesperson tells me that they see vaccination as a point of privacy and personal choice. Tom?
All right, Maura, we thank you for that.
Homophobic Pastor Stephen Anderson is opening his mouth again. Here's another video.
But, you know, people come up to me and want to argue with me all the time and say, you know, well, I believe homos can be saved. And I always tell them the same thing. Go out and get as many homos saved as you want. Just don't bring them here. That's what I say to them. I'm not going to sit there and argue with you. Now, look, if you want to bring homos to church, we're going to have a problem.
Free Thought Hour, my live Q&A show with this week's guest, Thomas Boache, will be starting in a few minutes, so stay tuned to this channel. Thomas is an old sparring partner of mine who will make a presentation explaining why he is a Christian. Come and join in. The GAN team will be back next week with our weekly news review at the same time on the same channel. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, set the notifications, etc. This has been Global Atheist News. Thank you for watching.